Give us a home world of our own, and you will never hear from us again. Fail to do so, and all your secrets will be revealed.
G'Kar, I have been in the royal palace on and off for most of my life. Even when Kataja was here, I never lost my affection for him. But tonight, for the first time, I think it frightens me.
Frightens you? Well, I won't be getting any sleep tonight.
Random attacks and a bold ultimatum rock the Alliance.
What you are asking for will be given.
Watch an all-new Babylon 5. Next Wednesday at 10 on TNT.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Great Council.
Welcome back, everybody, to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, where we are a group of first ones who have watched Babylon 5 way too many times, and a group of friends that we somehow suckered into watching this show with us to see what they think of each episode as we go week by week. I am Blake. Obviously, Scott is not with us this week. Apparently, after the discussion for the last two episodes that we've had, we may have broke Scott, and he may either be in therapy somewhere or somewhere sailing around the Caribbean. I personally vote for therapy. I don't know about the rest of you, but I could see this show sending somebody to the loony bin, especially the guy that has to do all the editing.
Well, if they put him on a boat for more than a couple days, then he's probably been left on an island with one bullet somewhere.
It is possible, and he may even be asking, why is all the rum gone by this point?
Did they Jack Sparrow him?
They might have. I mean, would you blame them?
No.
So as I said, I am Blake, and with me is...
Emily?
Justin.
Like
A lizard person named Jessi?
And Kevin.
So you know how much we love reviews on this podcast, and especially ones that aren't complete fucking cunts that give us 1 star on the regular. We do love us a good 5-star review here, so here is one from Dancing Joy. Dancing Joy says, "We are always entertaining. I love this show. Been listening to it since near the beginning, and it has quickly become one of my favorite B5 or any podcasts. The unique part of this show is getting to go on the first-time watch experience with the newbies for the first part and then listening to the first-timers dish on all of the lore that the newbies haven't learned yet. It can be crass at times. Well, most of the time. Definitely not a safe-for-work listen. That's why they make headphones, Dancing Joy. But the personalities of the host and the camaraderie they share is a joy to listen to, especially when it goes off the rails. I'm especially appreciative of the wide range of perspectives and that they almost never agree on anything. The one thing I might change is let the newbies talk more, and Scott maybe a little less. Well, kidding. Sort of. Love you guys. Thank you, Dancing Joy."
Yay.
Thank you.
See, those are the reviews we like. The ones that call us crass, not safe for work, and somehow manage to ding Scott in the process.
I mean, I like a good 1-star review too, just as long as they're not from the same person who can't let go of the fact that he got ejected from our Facebook group for poor conduct.
Well, he's got to have something to do from his mother's basement other than jerk off. Mike, I believe you have a synopsis for us.
This week's episode of Babylon 5. Byron's telepaths choose a really poor time to make an ultimatum to the Intergalactic Alliance amidst a brewing crisis involving trade routes, while Londo and G'Kar go on the shittiest road trip of all time.
Oh, God. All we need is a story about trade routes. And can we work in the Senate? Oh, no, wait. Wrong franchise.
Babylon, episode 1.
And somehow JMS could probably make it a better story than what that clusterfuck was. So let's go to our newbies for their first impressions, and let's start with Emily.
Londo and G'Kar were great, as they always are. Everything else pretty much sucked. Still hate Byron. Still think he's gross. I'm worried about Lita. There you go.
Are you just worried she's going to have an orgasm and radicalize more people again? Is that the worry there?
Not at all, actually. I mean, if
Yes,
that's
well.
what she wants to do, all the more power to her, because damn, that's one hell of an orgasm.
I wasn't on that episode, but and I don't like to toot our own horn too much, but that was an excellent turn of phrase.
It really was. When in doubt, call an Aussie. And Jessi, how about your first impression?
This episode was weird, and I was just hoping that we didn't see more telepath sex at the end, which clearly and luckily it cut off before we had to see that shit show again. I'm with Emily. I do and did love the G'Kar and Londo bit. Definitely my favorite part. I also, again, for the 739th and a half time, found myself saying, what in the actual fuck am I looking at? So I did enjoy it. I guess I'm just not super in love with the telepath bits. So I'm finding Lita being Lita again, where she makes her whole entire personality about the person that she's trying to please at that time. So I would probably give it a 5.5 out of 10.5.
And Justin, how about your first impressions this week?
Yeah, I guess I'm on par with kind of everybody else on this. The Centari Prime stuff was great. The way they tied the two plot lines kind of together a little bit was kind of an interesting revelation, which I'm interested to see kind of play out. I'm not completely done with the telepaths yet, but I'm getting there. It's a very slow moving storyline, so I'm kind of hoping it picks up a little bit. And I think finally we're going to start to see kind of some movement with that whole storyline now that it looks like things are going to come to a head. Overall, I don't grade it as bad as Jessi. I give it maybe a 7 out of 10, just because the Centari Prime stuff was pretty good.
And let's flip over to our first ones, who've probably seen this way more than we probably want to at this point. Mike.
Well, not to completely shit on our review there that said we never agree on anything, but I totally agree with the newbies on this one. I'm very over the telepath plot at this point. I mean, quite frankly, I was more into it up until last week, or maybe it was the week before. I don't know, whenever the orgasm heard round the station. But whenever that happened, because I really felt like Byron had a decent plot line and was this like kind of decent anti-hero-ish kind of character with a noble intention. And I just totally do not track his argument this time around. Maybe the smallest minutia of it. Now I just think he's being a prick. And I'm kind of done with it. Meanwhile, on Centari Prime, things are really interesting, and I love Londo and G'Kar. So there you have it. It's like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for me if we're doing numbers now all the time.
And Kevin.
I too am rather over the telepath storyline. I'll be honest, I think it's okay to say it at this point. I told myself this rewatch, so I was I'm really going to try and go into this telepath storyline with an open mind. And I find myself at exactly the same point that I would have been on my last couple of rewatches at this point in the season, where I'm kind of. And I too agree that the stuff on Centari Prime is the most interesting of the episode and delightful when Andreas and Peter are doing their thing, which is quite entertaining. I was really taken by two things in this episode, which I'll mention really quick. One, I really liked the Lord Jono character and really wished he would have stuck around a little while longer because he seemed kind of interesting to me. He had been in the royal court. His family obviously kind of important, so he'd been around a long time, and I just found him kind of interesting. The other thing I was struck by in this episode was how much of a complete sellout politician Sheridan was in this episode. And I'm sure we'll talk about that, so I won't say anything more, but Jesus Christ.
Wow, we've had a Jesus Christ reference now.
Yeah, I'm really pretty irritated by Sheridan at this point in the series myself.
Emily's rubbed off on you a little too much.
Apparently.
Terrible.
Yeah, kind of terrible.
Can I do Scott's review real quick?
Please.
Only if you do a voice.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Scott, and you're all wrong. I love this one, and everything is great about it, and you all just don't know what you're talking about.
Yuck.
I am so leaving that in the edit.
It's too bad this isn't a video podcast because you're swinging your arms back and forth like hardy, 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 hard.
And that's with no wine, motherfuckers. You're welcome.
The jaunty little arm movements sadly don't translate to audio very well, but I feel like I have to jump in here because why not start an argument right off the bat? I did not dig Lord Jono at all. He was not the highlight of this episode. I thought that actor had like one type of smarmy emotion that he delivered every single line with.
Oh, you mean like Centauri? Oh, it's the Centari Riker character, right?
Like he delivered his line. I heard this rumor. And then he like turned and winked at the camera and paused for Londo to insert his line, and then he did the same thing over and over. And I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Ian,
that was
Ian Ogilvy, if you're listening.
there was definitely some overacting on Centauri Prime.
Yeah.
I love the one when they go in, the guy's hanging from the ceiling, and the dude like clutches his pearls, like, oh my.
I just thought the character was kind of interesting.
That's fair. Both he and the other minister that was all aghast at G'Kar, they were both just not selling it.
So I will say, I definitely agree with all of you, except Scott's review. Scott is totally wrong on this one. And the best part is, y'all, I'm the one editing this one. This will be fun. See what happens when you miss an episode? So I agree.
Is this what you do to me every other week when I'm gone?
Did you not catch my and I'm Mikey at the end of the one you missed?
No, I literally never listen to our podcast.
Yeah,
we just add you in.
Yeah.
Okay, you turn on the John AI bot, tune it slightly, and
pretty much.
Okay.
No, I just go like this a lot. Hi, I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike. I play with Transformers during the podcast.
And
apparently everyone is secretly Popeye.
That's fair.
And we've derailed. No. So I agree with all of you. This is definitely not one of my favorite episodes, and I am certainly getting over the telepath stuff with this one. Even on this rewatch, it's just not landing. This episode I also have another problem with, and it's not necessarily the episode's fault, but it's that continuity glitch between this one and Secrets of the Soul. Day of the Dead comes in between these in the broadcast order, but it wasn't supposed to be that way. So you've got Secrets of the Soul with the orgasm that radicalized the hippies. Then you've got the whole events of Day of the Dead. And then you jump back to this where they're basically talking like they banged yesterday. I don't like the way the story flows that way. Honestly, I could just ditch this episode entirely except for the Centari Prime stuff. I think that all was done really well. Anything with G'Kar and Londo in it and those two actors, especially when G'Kar is talking about the heart versus the hand and the mouth in that whole scene. But I will say there was one part on the station that I enjoyed, and that was Sheridan sitting there talking about how Byron did it the inconvenient way, and Delin just looks at him and goes, I do remember the president telling you that, and just walks out. Kind of the fucking told you so, dumbass, and leaves.
Yeah, that part was enjoyable, and I was like, I hope she figures it out and leaves this dumbass.
Speaking of weird continuity, the thing that also bugged me isn't so much something that happens or is said in the episode, so much as it was in the synopsis for the episode, where they start off and it's like, Londo begins to suspect something might be amiss on Centari Prime. I'm like, yeah, a cruiser exploded outside your window last time. Your Uber literally tried to kill you.
So where do we want to jump in with the discussion on this?
Let's get the goddamn telepaths out of the way because I just don't really want to talk about them at all.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the telepaths. And I think Jessi has some thoughts on that.
I have none.
I will edit that shit back in.
Just because you shushed her, that's why.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh, Blake's about to get punched.
I'm 2,000 miles away. I'm good.
Oh, I think her arm will reach.
If you think 2,000 miles is going to stop me, Blake, you just don't know me.
No, but the dozens of vineyards around me will.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, now you have a point. Okay, and that was a low blow. So keep it up. Okay, so I am just really just over the whole thing because listen, I know that they want their own planet and great, fine in a hurry. Just do what everybody else does and go take one. Right. Just go find yourself some space and declare it your own. You don't have to make this big fucking production of it. Just do it. And I was digging Lita, like finding her own personality. And then all of a sudden, Lita's not her own personality again. She's just an extension of whatever David Koresh's real name is.
Emily.
Byron's a telepath, which means he can read people's minds. For someone who can read people's minds, he really doesn't seem to understand reactions that people will have. Like, he really thought going in and being like, we're going to blackmail you and you're going to give us what we want is going to fucking do anything other than just piss him off. Like, really, dude? How many minds have you been in and you haven't figured out that was a bad idea? That was a terrible freaking idea.
It's the same tactic you use with children, isn't it? It's like, you can have 2 cookies. I want 4 cookies. Now you get no cookies. Get the fuck off my station.
Something about him just seems so fake and phony. And as much as we ragged on the sex scene because it was awkward, we only saw Lita's walls coming down, if we want to call it that, in the vision she was sending out. I don't recall seeing visions from him. Did he not share?
He was faking it.
Is he still hiding stuff? Because I feel like he's hiding stuff that we don't, and I'm not cool with it. I don't trust him.
Oh, so many comments I could make about things that Byron is hiding, but instead, let's go to Justin.
I'll say that Byron's still not, yeah, even though his methodology is messed up and he took the exact wrong approach to this whole thing, he's not wrong. I mean, every oppressed people, I mean, look at through the history of humanity, every oppressed people seeks and deserves a homeland of their own. It's happened over and over in history. So I don't blame him for being stuck on, hey, we want our own planet to conquer and rule, and we haven't seen that in other sci-fi tropes. But I can't put a finger on what about the whole Telepath storyline, because I honestly thought, like, starting this out, I was gonna like really enjoy this as being something that's more in kind of my wheelhouse, to the people who are sick of my X-Men comparisons. Over time, yeah, it's just not hitting with me overall. Yeah, I get it. You're definitely, their arguments are 100% correct, but I agree with whatever, I think it was Jessi who said, you know, or somebody said, you can read these people's minds, but you can't tell, hey, maybe we're going about this the wrong way. If you can sit there, and if Byron was sitting there reading Garibaldi's mind, and we don't really know what he found, and if he can sit there and read everybody else's on the station's minds, and they can do it from sitting in their little kumbaya complex down in the Brown sector, then they should be able to 100% come up with, hey, this is what they all want to hear, so let's tell them that. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to throw my whole speech out the window. Haha, made you look. And now I'm going to sit there and threaten you guys and, oh, give us our own home planet and everything like that now. So blackmail trying to get your way with a political organization very rarely works out, and you should know.
You mentioned the oppressed telepaths, and I have a hard time, though, thinking of these telepaths as oppressed, just because in some of the interviews that Robin Atkins Down has done afterwards, most of them were wearing this black wardrobe, this kind of stylish black wardrobe. Apparently half the wardrobe were in was like Prada and Gucci. That's what they had in the costume department that fit the model of black. If they wanted a homeworld, goddamn, go sell the fucking suit jacket. They could have made some money.
If you've ever listened to anything Ayn Rand has done, the rich are the oppressed.
Well, I try not to listen to Ayn Rand for many, many reasons. So let's go to Kevin on that note.
Well, here's a radical idea that costs them absolutely nothing. How about Sheridan just gives them a fucking planet? Because honest to God, what does it cost? Like, yeah, okay, maybe some setup costs and stuff, because you're not just going to go dump them on the planet and call it a day. So they might need a jump gate and some supplies.
To that point, because that's came up before. What was the race that died out? The Marquette, that Sheridan destroyed the jump gate. I mean, that planet's there presumably with infrastructure. So you're right. There's options there.
I'm sure it's plundered, but still.
And I heard SETI Alpha 5 is a beautiful this time of year. So, you know, let's just drop them off there.
The problem is it's between the earworms and the rickrolls on that planet. It could be a real bitch.
Yeah. It just seems like an incredible hole in the plot to have Sheridan not be for giving them a homeworld, or at least figuring out a way to do this. And for him to parrot what Clark said was just really, really annoying. It really is making Sheridan out to be the worst type of sellout politician there is. And I just don't think that it's becoming for the character at all. I just don't see that happening. It feels fake to me just as a device in the plot, and I don't like it.
Jessi.
Okay, two things. So when Koresh was up in front of the league and he was talking, and Sheridan was like, "You can't do that." Koresh was like, "Hey, shut up, you little bitch," and wouldn't even let him talk. Like, he was like, "No, we're not doing that today. I don't care if you yell." But to my main point, hear me out. These are the most powerful people, right? Like, they can pain at like the drop of a hat, and you're telling me that you can't just go take a planet? Because he got up there and he said, you guys all have uninhibited, is that a word? Uninhibited planets on the outside, on the outskirts of your worlds, blah, blah. Just give us
I
one.
believe it's uninhabited. Uninhibited is what we say most of the time on this show. She's
I'm
so gonna tell me
educated
something in a
AF.
minute.
Leave me alone. Sorry. Anyway, you have these planets that don't have anybody on them, right? Whatever you want to call that word. And just let them go take it. Like, just let them fucking, who's going to stop them? Thank you. I digress.
And Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, all I can do is sum up what everyone else has said. And just the thing about this storyline that has become so frustrating, I believe, to all of us. And for me, the first part of it is that I feel like I don't think Byron has done a 180 on his beliefs, but I think he's definitely done a hard 90. But beyond that, it's that both sides of the argument are doing things in the most naive, tragically stupid way possible. And what's frustrating about that even more is the fact that, you might look at any real world situation going on, maybe even right now, and say, wow, both sides of this argument are really fucking dumb, and there's a better way for them both to be handling it. Except in this case, we're in space, and one side of them could read the other side's mind, and they ought to goddamn know better.
And Justin.
My comment's going to be more of a technical one, I guess. The only thing that I can think of why this is all playing out the way that it is, the only thing I can think of is they finished season 4, or got close to finishing season 4, not thinking they were going to have a 5th season. So once they got picked up for a 5th season, it was almost like JMS didn't have the time he would normally take to flesh out a story before he had to kind of write it up and they had to shoot it. So that's the only reason why I can think where there's so many plot holes and so many things that just don't make sense with this entire storyline, is because it almost feels like everybody's action, like they said at the end of season 4, a telepath war is coming. So it's almost like, oh shit, well now we actually have to film it. What do we do to force this event to happen? And it almost feels like a lot of the writing does feel forced. And Kevin, I didn't even think about it before you said it, but you're 100% right. Sheridan from season 3 and season 4 would have just found a way to get them a homeworld somewhere a long time ago, and this all would have been resolved in one episode. And that's the only thing I can think of, is just they had to write it in a way to force this issue into the story because they already alluded to it in the previous season. And I think that's why maybe none of us are really enjoying it.
I'm not so sure how much it's rushed writing. They did get a renewal notice in time that JMS actually had some writing, and he also had some story ideas. He mapped out quite a bit of the series even before the threat of cancellation at the end of season 4. But as we've discussed some before, JMS was at a convention and had a bunch of his notes spread out in the hotel room.
Yeah, and they got thrown away or something.
Yeah, they all got thrown away, so he kind of had to scramble and come back with a few things. And I wondered, to your point, Justin, if that's where some of the plot holes are, was when he tried to reconstruct some of that, it fell apart a little bit. Because there's definitely some gaps in the writing and the story, and even some of the characters. I would say season 5 has some significant character changes for folks that we have seen in a very different light so far. Jessi.
I think that's probably part of why I'm so bored with this plot line now, is because if you think about through, was it season 4 when we had both the Shadow War and the War with Earth? By like episode 5 or 6, we were already done with the Shadow War. I mean, it was like bam, 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 bam. And it was so quick and fast paced that like my husband's asking on season, whatever episode the last Shadow War episode was, he's like, is this the season finale? I'm like, no, dude, we're only in like episode like 7 or 8. I don't remember what it was. But so this is, now we're on episode, 9? And we're still seeing the same thing over and over and over. And I think I was just so used to it being so quick in the last seasons that this one's like, here we go again. Can we get over this and move on to the next?
Kevin.
So I have a little production thing about this episode I found kind of interesting. Obviously, Robert Atkin Downes and Pat Tallman are doing a lot of scenes together and a lot of closeness in those scenes. Unfortunately, there was a flu running rampant around Los Angeles around the time they were filming the beginning of this season. And the night before some of the big scenes in this episode were filmed, particularly the speech in front of the Alliance Council, Mr. Downes got the flu. So he's taking cold medication, and he is somebody that doesn't even take anything for a headache. So he was quite loopy for filming of this episode. So if you watch the scene, that one in particular, there's a lot of edits and cuts because they had to kind of cobble it together. Because the poor guy had a lot of trouble remembering his lines because he's just not somebody who deals well with cold medication. So I found it kind of interesting that, during this, they have the real world and creating difficulty for the production of this particular episode. At least I think if you watch this episode and you didn't know that, I don't think anyone would notice. But apparently he is a little bit embarrassed to tell that story, but he's told that at a couple of conventions. But
Emily.
I thought the other telepath who went against Byron was actually fairly interesting as a character who we didn't see much of. Because when Byron came to the station, he made it seem like there was a lot more agreement amongst the group that was coming there because they're all seeking refuge. And then we get to see he doesn't actually have maybe as much sway in the group as he led Sheridan and some others to believe. And I just thought that was actually probably the most interesting part of the whole telepath story plot for this one. I didn't catch his name, though. Did they even say his name? Because he's the one that was like ready to.
The actor is Victor Love, but they did not give a name to the character in the show, and there doesn't appear to be one available.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I missed it or if they actually just didn't give him a name because I feel bad not calling him by his character's name. But I felt like his response actually seemed, I don't want to say logical, but a natural response. Like, they're coming for us and we need to be prepared. Shit's going down because you guys decided to pull blackmail out of your ass. And what the hell did you think was going to happen? They're going to come for us.
Well, and actually, I think that segues really well with Jessi's point about how long the storyline has taken, because maybe all the telepaths were eating out of Byron's hand up until the point when they're like, all right, dude, we're still here and nothing's getting done. Like, what?
Yeah, I was going to say something a little bit along that lines, but you took a different tack with it than I was going to. Remember, this was a much smaller group initially, and they have taken on a lot of new people throughout because they've heard about the fact that there's this colony going on here on Babylon 5. So it's created a much larger group. And I think it also has to do with the fact, as you point out, Mike, that they haven't gotten very far with where they want to be with the way that Byron's been going about things. So it's inevitable that you're going to want to have some change in the political makeup of this group if they're not seeing any results from his perspectives being realized.
Justin.
I was just going to say, let's not kid ourselves, though, and pretend like that this is the first time that they're arming up or anything like that, because just earlier in the episode, when a group of them decided to go out and save their cohort, they produced this big box of shillelaghs out of nowhere that they just all of a sudden started picking up and we're going to go beat them up, guys. Let's go. So it's not exactly like they've never been armed before. This is just the first time that we're actually seeing them.
Emily.
I think one of the other things that's been bothering me particularly about how Sheridan is now treating them is that they also have Psy-Corps coming after them. So, like, Psy-Corps wants them and isn't going to be nice about it. And Lockley kind of tried to find a loophole to do the best she could to delay it while something else maybe got worked out, which should have opened Sheridan up to actually creating a solution. Because there are planets that they could probably have like a section of like, hey, we have this unused space. You guys can like chill over here or whatever. And yet he goes directly after them like the Psy-Corps is doing. I was really disappointed in Sheridan for that.
Well, I think you make a good point there too. I mean, that's, to me, giving them their own planet would have been a pretty convenient way to dodge that whole Psy-Corps bullet, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Right now, he's keeping them under his thumb on an Earth Force run station where, you know, he's culpable for their presence and answerable to the Earth government. Yeah. Send them off to their own planet.
They're running out the clock like, okay, we have like 60 days and we're counting down the seconds until we come back and we take them whether or not you like it.
Yeah. I'll send them to their own planet, and then when Psy-Corps comes looking for them, go, I don't know, man. They're their own thing. We have no jurisdiction. But plus, you're going to have to go through some White Stars if you want to take them.
Right. Plus, you can continue to use them for your intelligence gathering if they owe you a debt of gratitude by finding them a planet, maybe throwing them some supplies now and then.
And also,
Yeah.
maybe don't piss off the people that are gathering your intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like bad policy and strategy. So Sheridan's supposed to be like a military skilled person, apparently. I'm like, really, that's dropping the ball.
Yeah, that's why I don't like the writing here. It just doesn't make sense as far as from Sheridan's perspective.
But I'll defend it a little bit though, because there is a difference between military leadership and political leadership. And the what may be smart strategy military wise may not always be the best sell politically.
He's overrated.
I mean, I do seem to recall some of us were defending the president of Earth when she was reprimanding Sheridan, and now Sheridan is parroting what the president of Earth said.
Yeah.
So,
We
I mean,
hate
he
him.
even said he's right. He just did it in the wrong way.
Yeah. Hashtag
Sheridan
the
knows.
interim president of Earth also
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, there you go.
So I think we have beat the telepath horse till it is roughly paced.
Oh, good. Okay.
So how about we switch over and talk about our favorite buddy travel series, the Londo and G'Kar Visit Centari Prime show?
I'll just. Oh, Jessi wants to go.
No, go ahead. You start, and then I'll go.
Okay. I just was going to throw a little note out here that is, for as much as I was shitting on some of the other actors, the one in this episode that was really kind of a highlight for me was the actor Damien London, who plays the Regent, the Mad Regent.
Yes.
That dude's a delight. I love watching him on screen.
He is.
And I read some interviews from him where really he was a fairly accomplished actor as like the guest bit guy that shows up as the wacky character. And he got a really long leash from JMS and others to just go out on scene and act to his heart's content, to read the lines and deliver them in whatever way he thought the Regent would deliver them, is my understanding, because he was so well respected for what he did. And I thought he was a treat.
I couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
I think he definitely adds a certain quality to the character that makes it enjoyable when he's in the scene, not because he's the most believable leader of an entire planet, but because you feel bad for him because he just seems like a real decent man. And then in this episode you see that it's being usurped by some other force.
It was a very nuanced, I mean, both writing and acting, because he was this kind of, I don't want to say bumbling, but kind of this goofy character, was more concerned about the color of the curtains in the palace than he was anything else. But this time you're getting this dialogue from him where he's hearkening back to that guy, but he's also making it very clear that that guy's dead.
Jessi.
I was going to say he's a delight until you see his demon friend in the shadows, and then
what
it's
the
all
hell
over.
was that thing?
That's exact. I literally was like, I was watching and I yelled, "What the fuck?" And this is something that happens quite regularly here in this show. But I really thoroughly enjoy the dynamic, and I know we say this all the time, but I really I love the dynamic between Londo and G'Kar, especially when they found out that G'Kar was going to be his bodyguard, and the guy like spent so much time just talking shit and doing all this stuff, and then G'Kar just let it roll right off his back. He's like, "What time's dinner?" And I was just like, I love you. I love this. I love the whole thing. I just really thoroughly enjoy them together still.
It was less what time's dinner and more go make me a sandwich.
Yes, basically.
Justin.
I'm not going to echo again how much we love those two whenever they're on screen together, but the two things I kind of thought were interesting out of this whole dynamic piece was the evolution of Londo's character when he's in the Centari court. Because if this were 2 seasons ago, Londo would be very concerned about what everybody's going to think and how everybody's going to act towards him and following the social norms of the court. And in this episode, he is 100% out of fucks to give regarding Centauri's social norms. He doesn't care anymore. He walks in, I want to see the Regent. Oh, by the way, here's my bodyguard, and you're going to treat him like a member of the court too. And just, like everybody, like somebody was saying before, everybody's clutching their pearls like, oh, there's a Narnanana. Oh, dear God. It just reminds me of antebellum South society. And it was just brilliant just how Peter portrays Londo throughout this as, you know what? He's here. He's not going anywhere. I'm the prime minister. I'm your next emperor. deal with it. And then the scene I think I liked the most was I'd call it the John Boy moment at the end, the Waltons moment at the end of the episode where they're both laying in their beds and just talking things over. It's just like, hey, G'Kar? Yeah, I'm kind of scared. Okay, type thing, where the dialogue was, of course, a lot more interesting than that, but just the fact that they're just laying in bed in what I'm assuming to be is either the same room or adjacent rooms, but they're laying in their beds just having that normal scene that we've seen from so many sitcoms of Step Brothers. That's the best analogy. When they're laying in their beds and just having these discussions and stuff like that, it just shows how both of those characters have evolved since everything was horrible during the war. And then G'Kar's willingness to forgive the guy who whipped him, and him talking about how you don't blame the hand, you blame the heart, and the most pain comes from the mouth and stuff like that. It's just very much, I know we've said it, I'm going to say it for the 2,222nd time here on this podcast, but just the way G'Kar has adapted and evolved, especially now where he is the kind-hearted person that he is just makes this part all the more worth watching. And he demonstrated in front of a bunch of Centari people who thought that they were going to have him. Look at the rage-filled, angry Narn, how violent he is, and he just drops the whip and basically forgives the guy and shoves it back in the other minister's face. It was priceless.
Dick was that minister that he was going to let this guard just whipped potentially.
Yeah.
Just to make a point or to make a mockery of G'Kar.
And the guard was going to let it happen, too. Like, if that were me, if I were SS Commando, whoever on Centari Prime, and my boss comes up to me and says, oh, yeah, hey, by the way, this guy's going to probably kill you. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll take one for the team. No, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to go get whipped by somebody. Screw you, dude.
Maybe he liked it.
Well, you know, everybody's got a kink.
Speaking of kinks, I love the end of that scene, though, when G'Kar goes to walk away and he just looks at the female Centari, gives her the little kissy face.
Oh, and she liked it, too. She liked it.
And she hasn't even seen the robe.
She was, you could tell she was thinking about some Narn dick during that.
I almost said something that was going to get us banned. Never mind.
Oh, please do.
No.
Please say it.
Nope.
I can edit it out.
Nope. Not going to happen.
Damn it.
Instead, I'm going to go with the Step Brothers line. Hey, G'Kar, did we just become best friends?
Nope. You're a curly-headed fuck. I do.
You've piqued our curiosity. We have to know.
Oh my god, I don't even know.
Now you've made it.
No, not typing it. Never mind. Nope.
Now you've blown it out of proportion. It's not even as bad as he wanted it to be, but yeah. I will add to Justin's and say I did like that scene too, because he's like, I'm kind of scared, and G'Kar's like, well, not sleeping tonight. Like, just rolled over and was like, we're done. Like, where are we going? Let's get up and leave. I love that whole segment. I love that whole plot line. I'm still thoroughly confused as to what in the fuck the demons are, or how they're invisible, and how the knife didn't stab him. I have so many questions.
Yeah, there's a lot, like the weird tentacle around the regent's neck that was like strangling him. And who does that belong to? Did it belong to the creature that like randomly showed up when Londo was going to be killed? Did it belong to like a different intermediary? Are there multiples here? Like, how many are there?
Were they two different creatures? The one that saved Londo, and then the one at the end?
Are they telekinetic, apparently?
We don't know. And
that's what I was going to get to.
And they look different in the premonitions that Londo had, where it was more like a weird little alien attached to his neck. And then this one, there's like a tentacle strangling him. So I'm super confused about.
Was that, sorry, Emily, was that the things that was attached to
the keeper? Yeah, that was the keeper on the Regent. Yeah.
Okay. But what was the thing in the corner?
The keeper's
exactly.
Keeper? The keeper's bodyguard?
Exactly.
Keeper's keeper?
But yeah, I mean, exactly. We don't know what that creature is. Now, I was under the impression, and we just found out today, that evidently there's more than one keeper down on this planet. We don't know who else in the Centari leadership has them in addition to the Regent, but also they've kind of got an overlord that's sitting there that's kind of maybe directing everything else behind the scenes. How else would they be able to take control of the Centari fleet and have them go out and attacking transport ships? And to what purpose? They're not seizing anything. I think somebody made a comment during one of the characters made a comment during the episode, like, they're not taking the cargo. They're just attacking and randomly blowing up ships in the sector. And I guess we're kind of getting into question and prediction territory, but one of my biggest things is what are they trying to do in commandeering the Centari fleet and have them attack all of these transport ships? But yeah, this guy even got a little bit more scary where we find out, I think, because the demon overlord or whatever you want to call him, I would guess the telekinetic one, the one that saved Londo's life because we like you. We think we can use you. Well, from what I'm seeing, that doesn't sound like that's a very good thing to be liked for.
Anything else on our Centari friends or Londo and G'Kar on Centari Prime?
Sometimes I'm still amazed at the evolution of Londo and G'Kar from where they started and where they are now.
Agreed.
Because let's be honest, I would not be that cool with Londo after all that shit.
Agreed.
I don't have that much chill. I am not that calm. I am not that nice.
No, the point that I was going to make is I just think that just shows it's more of a growth in G'Kar than it is Londo. I mean, Londo is becoming a lot more tolerant and has recognized his mistakes, but I think it's G'Kar that's the one that's taken the steps to mend the relationship, to forgive. I mean, that's the hardest thing to do. He's not going to forget. You can tell that, and even in this episode, he's never going to forget what happened to him and what happened to his people. But the capacity for him to forgive and embrace somebody he actively wanted to kill for a very long time.
Yeah, I'm not that forgiving.
Nope,
me either.
But I still think it's a really cool story arc because it adds an interesting twist to their now what's essentially like buddy comedy.
I think we're about ready to jump into questions and predictions unless anyone has anything else they want to bring up about this week. Great discussion, y'all. Good job. So let's start off with Justin for his questions and predictions this week.
Yeah, I think I already dropped one of who is this demon overlord guy, and so that's number one. Question number two is what purpose do the keepers have in commandeering the Centari fleet and just randomly attacking ships? Like, what kind of purpose does that serve? Question number three, I'll preface this by saying Londo knows something's going on. I don't remember if he knows about the keepers yet, but he knows something's going on, and what does he do when he finds out about what's really going on in Centari Prime? Because it's been alluded to throughout visions and everything like that. Londo's Emperor has the keeper, so why would he willingly take that? That doesn't make any sense to me. In terms of predictions, I think this is where we're finally going to start to see the Cold War with the telepaths get hot. I wouldn't be shocked if really soon we see Bester back on that station trying to fulfill his promise of taking the telepaths away. And I think that's what starts the telepath wars the moment Psy-Corps shows up.
All right, Emily, questions and predictions.
How many other, we're going to call them ruling or controlling species, are on Centari Prime? Because I do have questions about that. Is it the one in different forms? Is it two separate ones? Hell, is there even like 3 to 5? I don't know, but I want to know. When Lita and Byron were talking and Byron told Lita to leave when things get bad, did he actually want her to leave if things get bad? Or is that a manipulation tactic of, you'll think I'm so great if I tell you to leave, but I really want you to stay and like die with me or whatever in the hell it is that's going to happen to those two?
Scott would at this point interject something about trust issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he would. Too bad he's not here to do that.
Yes, he is.
Scott, Jessi?
Emily, I think you have trust issues. You don't trust anybody.
Thank you, Scott.
And last question, does Sheridan end up siding with the Psy-Corps against the refugee telepaths on B5 and actually helping Psy-Corps get them?
And Jessi.
Okay. Question number 1. What in the actual fuck? Question number B. What is that demon weird thing? Question number 3.5. Is Londo actually going to take the Emperor position? And I hope not. That's my prediction. I hope not is my prediction.
So to sum up Jessi's questions, what the fuck, who the fuck, and how the fuck? Done.
Yes.
Okay.
What the fuck do they want and who the fuck are they?
Right.
So before we sign off for the evening, let's get to one of our favorite weekly components of this show, Jessi's Conspiracy Theory Minute.
Okay, we're getting really weird today, people.
Like we haven't before.
I'm just going to go for it. Amelia Earhart was eaten by crabs. It gets
you can
weirder.
take that
Okay.
one more directions, yeah.
Okay. No.
Wow,
no.
Justin. Jesus.
He landed on an island and got eaten by a big ass crab. Okay. The earth is hollow. the moon isn't real, and therefore the moon landing was fake. Queen Elizabeth I was a man, and sirens caused the Titanic to sink.
A little bit of crypto or cryptid in there. I like that.
Yeah, well, nobody likes to talk about cryptids. Mike has asked them several times.
I know. It's not a popular subject, apparently.
But no, the moon is a giant mirror type thing is really funny. I've seen multiple posts on that where, if you take the images on the moon and like you inverse them and flip them upside down, it kind of looks like the continents. So all you're seeing is just the continents reflected off of the moon. They're
all weird extensions on flat Earth. They're ways that the flat earthers try to explain in the most preposterously fucked up way possible.
I really want to get a good in-depth explanation of the sun simulator. The sun's not the same sun that it was, and we've got like an extra sun in our solar galaxy, and now we're seeing that one, but it's actually like a simulated sun. It's not a real one.
We're
unwilling. Explained by Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's why I want to come on here and explain this.
Yeah, we need to get Neil on here.
I came across another one that said the Earth was sucked into a black hole.
I've seen that, and we're actually in like a parallel dimension.
Yeah, we're living in
like that.
Well, a simulation.
Clearly, we're in the darkest timeline right now. That's but
okay.
I wish I could put myself in a mental place where I liked, not that I mind this segment, but where I liked to study this stuff, because it just makes me sad, and I just don't.
Yeah, we deserve to be sucked into a black hole.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's shit like this that make us think maybe the internet wasn't that good of a fucking idea.
Yeah.
Social media damn sure wasn't.
Thanks, Zuckerberg.
When we do our special, I will tell a story about the time that we were in New York by the towers, and my husband said something so absolutely outlandish that I told him that if he ever said that again, we would break up immediately and never be together again.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Can't wait.
Now I got to know what it is.
Yeah, well, wait till the special.
So, folks, if you have any conspiracy theories you would like to share with us, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. Again, if they involve replacements, tiki torches, or other certain conspiracy theories, we won't necessarily block you, but we sure as hell are going to have some fun at your expense.
What's our word for the day?
Crackpots?
That'll work.
Here's our word of the day, folks. Crackpots. You heard it here. And for those listening on the Pacific Northwest, no, not crack pipes, crackpots. They are two different things.
And for people in Indiana, it's not crockpot either.
That's messed up. Let's move on.
So this has been another quality episode of the Gray 17 Babylon 5 podcast. We hope that you are listening to us on your podcast app of choice, and make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on all of our social media channels on YouTube, because the algorithm there seems to fucking hate us lately. So you could help us out by giving us a like and a follow there and clicking the notify button. Most of the time these drop on YouTube and do a live premiere on Wednesday mornings. There's at least one or two of us in the chat interacting with fans as you listen live to our premieres on Wednesday on YouTube, so make sure to click the notify button there. And if you'd like to support us through our Patreon, you can sign up there and get access to our Discord server, where that's an interesting conversation, and usually a few of us join in there as well. So make sure, if you're interested, to check that out. And if you would leave us an Apple review, that is the one that seems to count the most. And if you do, even if you hate us, tell us we suck, but we do so with 5 stars. That's all we ask. Tell us we're 5 stars of bad. Don't just keep giving us 1 star week after fucking week. Thank you. Again, I am Blake, and with me has been
Emily,
Justin,
Mike,
Scott, and Jessi,
and Kevin.
Just roll that beautiful bean footage.
Thank you for listening to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Gray17podcast or youtube.com @Gray17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Gray 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim?
And beyond that?
The truth.
And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Rim. We have kicked our newbies out. They are now scouring the islands of the Caribbean, looking for which one they abandoned Scott on with that gun and a bullet. Hopefully they find him before, anything happens, or he manages somehow to escape into a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And we wish them the best of luck with that endeavor. While they're off doing that, let's go ahead and jump into their questions and predictions, most of which seem to factor around who is the demon overlord guy and what is his connection to the keepers. Who wants to take this one?
Well, the Drak apparently have this subspecies or other such, and it may not even be from the same planet, but they've clearly used them to do their dirty work with controlling who they put those keepers on.
As I recall it, when Londo gets the Drak actually pulls his G'Kar-esque robicide, pulls his tit off, and that's the keeper.
Yeah, they have a pouch, so it's like a parasited type of thing that's like a part of them that they take off and attach to the house, and that links the two creatures together.
Okay.
I just read the Wikipedia article, and it goes way more into detail than anyone cares to hear right now. So, but that's the gist of it. They have a pouch, and they pull a keeper out of it, and they put the keeper on a person.
Did it say whether they're from the same planet?
I believe it did, but it's also fuzzy on those sticks.
Yeah, okay. They could have just found it on somewhere else and decided, hey, that looks like a good idea to be.
Or bred it, or who knows. There was a lot of stuff in there that I don't know where the source of it comes from, but it talks a lot about how the Drak are basically genetically engineered to be not necessarily subservient, but they're genetically engineered to be connected to the shadows in some way, shape, or form. It's not hard to believe that they've got some built-in.
So now with the shadows gone, they're the ones calling the shots to be assholes in the galaxy. So why are they taking over the Centari fleet with no gain whatsoever that anyone can discern at this point?
So, I think the answer to that question is, I believe the Drak, they're carrying on the Shadows' work. And the Shadows' work was to create chaos for the sake of creating chaos. So they're out there just trying to wreck shit and make sure that we stop singing Kumbaya and start fighting again.
I think part of it, too, is what we get into with the Plague is they also want revenge for taking the Shadows out.
Yeah,
because the Shadows were their masters and they got taken out. Now they're trying to get revenge. And I almost wonder if it's revenge because the Shadows left and went beyond the rim with the Vorlons, just sort of said, oh, okay, fuck it, you're all on your own. And they felt they should have got to go along too or something. But either way, they're pissed and they're out to screw with the Alliance. And what we'll learn later with the taking over the Centari fleet is they're actually using shadow tech on those because they're going to find that there's no actual bodies on the Centari ships. There's just these robot controller thing that are flying around the Centari ships.
Yeah, we know or can assume that the Drak made it away from Zahadum with a haul of shadow to use however they saw fit. And well, like I said, I think I it's not a stretch to think that it's a revenge plot, at least partly, but I think Sheridan actually hits them on the head when he says, what's going to happen when the trade lanes are all fucked up and dangerous and ships are getting destroyed by unknown assailants. Eventually, everybody's going to start pointing the finger and biting again, which is straight out of the Shadow playbook.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to quote a Batman movie and say some people just like to watch the world.
Yep.
And that seems to be the draw.
So speaking of it, how many other species are controlling the region, which I think we kind of established as pretty much the Drak?
Yeah, and I had to stop myself when we were talking because I forgot this detail. Try to play it out of my thoroughly as possible. We did see two different looking aliens, and obviously we've seen a Drak at least once before, albeit in a very blurry way. But the two different aliens, even in this episode, they were both Drak. There was apparently two different casts, your cast and your cast situation.
And that's been some of the production, because even that first episode, we saw a Drak where it was kind of that blurry, phasing in and out type character. That wasn't really practical to keep doing, so they simplified the Drak. I mean, I think ultimately we see like 4 different designs of Drak by the end of the B5 universe.
Yeah, and wasn't there something about the fact that the costume looked good enough the first time, and so they did the blurry thing?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, the costume didn't look any fucking better this time, let me tell you.
Yeah.
At least the first one.
So does Sharon end up siding with the Psychor against the rogue telepaths? I don't recall that he so much sides with Psychor, but it does come to a head.
Yeah, I don't think Psycor really becomes too much involved between now and when Byron bites it. Um, yeah, I said it in the main show, so I won't belabor the point, but I don't like how this is written with Sheridan, but it isn't really that he sells out completely and backs the Psycor against them. I don't think that would make sense in universe at all, but it definitely isn't a lot better than that in my mind.
Now, Lockley will pull Bester in next week to help try to resolve things.
Right. But
we'll definitely see Bester again, but I don't think it's gonna be like a full organized sighting with, if I recall correctly.
Well, yeah, I was addressing the Sheridan thing. I don't think he really gets involved too much with Psycor between now and the end of the Byron storyline.
So here's a good question for us: what in the actual fuck?
We don't know.
And is Londo actually going to take the Emperor position?
Oh yes, he definitely is, and he's going to get a keeper. And it's kind of a sad death of Londo. What? 18, 19 years before he actually dies, because he's obviously never going to be the same again, because even when the real Londo is making any sort of appearance, he's drunk as shit. So
yeah, which was actually a good again, I praised the performance already in this, as well as the writing of the character. The Regent hinted, they kind of hit it on the head actually, with the fact that he was formerly abstinent of all alcohol, and all of a sudden now he was appearing late at night in the hallways, drunk off his ass. And
yeah,
well, and what they'll get at is that gives him that moment of freedom from the keeper, because
yeah, and he basically said it straight to Londo. He's like, "Yeah, I get drunk so I can talk."
Yeah, and he mentioned something about the nights go quickly.
And I think with Londo taking the keeper too, it's still Londo saving his people, because the Drock basically was like, either you do this or you're all gone.
Yeah.
Well, and we find out come Crusade that the Drock 100% have the ability to wipe out a planet.
Okay, so predictions. The shit with the Telepath is going to get hot real soon. Pretty much, because because next week we've got Tragedy of Telepaths, which is where they bring in Bester to try to help, and then after that is Phoenix Rising, where they take over Med Lab, and the Telepath crisis comes to an end. So really, we've got 2 more episodes of the Byron Telepath thing, and we're pretty much out of it at that point.
Right.
Now, there will be episode 13, The Korra's Mother, The Korra's Father, which is a Telepath trainee issue, but that's not part of the Byron arc. That's kind of a standalone Telepath story.
I don't remember liking that episode, but we'll see how I feel about it. Bester is likely to show up soon to arrest the rogue telepaths that will likely start causing the hot war to escalate.
I mean, definitely part right.
Bester
is likely to show up soon.
And then we have the lovely in 2 weeks, the Remember Byron. And the prediction is Londo does not take the Emperor position. Wrong.
Oh, dead wrong. Sorry.
Is there anything else you two want to bring up with this week's episode?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it quite thoroughly.
All right. Well, I think we have covered this one. So make sure to check us out next week for more Babylon 5 as we get into next week's episode, which is A Tragedy of Telepaths, where we will continue the saga of Byron and those poor Prada-clad telepaths. Again, I am Blake, and with me has been
Mike
and Kevin.
Once I would have thought pastels for the curtains. But I think we're well beyond pastels now. No bright colors anymore. Just darkness.